The average UK house price has fallen for 4 months in a row. The annual rate of house price growth more than halved in December 2022 when compared to November 2022. Does this provide some reassurance that things are starting to look better for those first-time buyers looking to move in 2023? It has been just a really rubbish time for those people trying to get onto the property ladder for the very first time. I know from my own personal experience, it has felt like an impossible task where every single factor is just stacked against me. And this is even more true when you factor those people in that don't get any financial help from their relatives and are trying to buy a home all on their own. And with the cost of living increasing, saving has become really, really difficult. It just seems like however much I earn, buying a property just moves further away. The goalposts keep moving and I can't quite get there. Yet people older than me or people that bought a house maybe a few years ago didn't seem to have the same problem. Well, that's because it's harder to buy a house right now. That's a fact. With the housing market having been so volatile, house prices being extremely high, overpriced in a lot of cases. Interest rates having been raised 9 times in the past year alone. Recessionary periods and mortgage rates being very high. It's just become very unwelcoming and scary for first-time buyers. It was easier for the generations before us in a lot of ways. Just take a look at the UK house price to earnings ratio, which shows you how much a house costs compared to the average salary over the years. The most recent data that I could get my hands on here shows that house prices are now more than 7 times our annual average income. And this is the highest rate ever recorded in history, which means buying a house has never been more expensive and more difficult than it is right now compared to what we earn. Whereas in the 1990s, this ratio came in at about 3 times, which means that just by going on the house price to earnings ratio, it was more than 50% more affordable and therefore probably easier to purchase a house back in the 1990s than it is today. Additionally, for the past few years, the competition to purchase a house has become astronomically high. So many people have been trying to outbid each other and get the same property, which means that property then just naturally becomes overvalued because more people are willing to spend more money on it. And this is because during lockdown, the housing market momentarily paused, which means that when it reopened and things started to go back to normal, the supply and the demand for the housing market was just all thrown off, which led to higher competition. But hopefully this is now starting to ease. Okay, so us first-time buyers have really struggled getting the chance to enter the housing market, but there's now signs that house prices are starting to decrease. Is this the good sign that we need? Should first-time buyers continue to hold off and wait for more favourable environments to present themselves? Or should they just bite the bullet and get a property now? Halifax and Lloyds have both said they predict house prices to fall by 8% in 2023. And then you've got Nationwide and Zoopla who have predicted a decrease of 5%. And there's some good news. We can actually see this already happening. When you look at the data from the back end of 2022, you can see that house prices are beginning to come back down. So there is a decrease in house prices happening. And there may be some different schemes out there offering discounts for first-time buyers. But I think it's really, really important that you also consider interest rates here and you think about your timeline for your purchase. Let's tackle interest rates first. The Bank of England have been increasing interest rates as a tool to beat inflation. And this doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. It's predicted that interest rates will continue to rise in 2023, and this interest rate increase is closely linked to an increase in mortgage rates. So it may be that house prices are falling, but it still might not be realistic for first-time buyers to purchase a property until they see the mortgage rates fall as well. Otherwise, you risk your mortgage payments becoming such a large percent of your monthly income, sometimes even up to 50%. And this could be a lot more than what people are currently paying for rent. So naturally, I decided to have a quick browse on some mortgage online calculators. And to buy a £300,000 property assuming a £50,000 discount over a 40-year repayment period, it would cost over £1,000 in mortgage payments every single month. At the cheapest, which is a lot more than a lot of people pay for rent. Oh, and that doesn't factor everything else that's become more expensive. Your energy bills and just the cost of living. Another thing I think people need to factor in is the timeline for their purchase. And by timeline, I mean the period of time that you're expecting to own your first property for. If you are looking for your first property to be quite a short-term thing, perhaps less than 5 years, and you're just looking to move in, do it up, and then maybe sell it and move on to your forever home, then it may be worth waiting even more until the house prices fall further. But if you're planning to live in the property for a very long period of time, perhaps over 10 years, then it may just make more sense to bite the bullet and buy the property, as these little housing prices fluctuations may not mean a lot to you in the long run. So let's just look at some pros and some cons of first-time buyers actually delaying buying their house, or whether they should actually just go ahead in 2023. We'll take a look at the pros of delaying the house purchase first. The first one is mortgage rates increasing. Even with the house prices falling, if the mortgage rates continue to rise, you could still be out of pocket based on those mortgage repayments. The next one is that house prices may be falling, but anyone that purchases a property now risks seeing the value of their home plummet in the first few years following. If you only have a small deposit and the house price falls, this could lead to a first-time buyer actually having negative equity in the property, which is when the property becomes worth less than the remaining mortgage value on the property. However, this point would only really matter when you come to sell the property, which then links back to your timeline of purchasing the property and your intentions with it. So let's look at some cons of delaying your first time purchase. Owning your own home means that you no longer have to think about rent. You don't have to think about rent increasing or having to move out of a rented property, or you don't have to also think about having to pay someone else's mortgage, and instead you can focus on paying your own. The next one is that we just don't know what's going to happen. Just like the stock market, we can't really predict the next few years. We don't know if the house prices are going to continue to fall. We don't know how long they're going to fall for, and we definitely don't know when the bottom of the market will come. The next one is that very, very fine line between house prices falling and finding a good mortgage rate. The last point is that now actually could be quite a good time for first-time buyers to get themselves a bargain. When there's speak of mortgage rates rising, some people may decide to sell quickly before that happens so they can move on to their next property. And of course, as a first-time buyer, you have the advantage of having no chain behind you, so you may become more favourable than the next. And now that we face a long recession, the number of sellers could actually drop again. So you could argue that now is a better time than waiting when there's very few houses out there. But like we said, we just can't predict this. Whether it's a good time for first-time buyers to buy now or hold off will really depend on their personal circumstances. And it will be a case of weighing up the pros and the cons and your personal finances and your affordability criteria for purchasing a property. There's lots to think about, but I hope this video really helped. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.